platform. So what I am going to be showing you today is mostly non-technical, so this will be for everybody, and is how to actually get the most out of this tool stack. This is a little bit about me. We have only 15 minutes, so time is short, and I'll be brief. But if you want to connect, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. That's where I do most of my webinars and such. And the long story about me is that I have been 10 years in different areas of AI, mostly building semantic search and AI applications. Today, I'm a professor at a couple of universities and also the CEO of a company where we're trying to help product organizations all over the world be more efficient in how they develop software. Now, this is not a moment in which only developers will be able to build. From now on, the main programming language becomes natural language. And so the barriers between product designers, engineers, and developers are blurring. If you're an engineer, do not gatekeep and use this opportunity to bring other people along. Engage early in the process and learn about what makes products, not just software. And for product designers, I definitely think that is the opportunity to learn the technical chops that you need to actually get building for it. What are we going to be looking at today? So ideally, you come with some underlying knowledge of what is available, and you have already tried V0, or one of these other services. If you can, add in the chat the tools that you've been using, and I'll relate to them so that if you haven't used V0, but you've used another one like Vault, I can draw parallels as I've been a subscriber of all of them and can help you out on the navigation. The idea is now to decide on where you're going to be using AI on your build process, getting your stack together, and deciding on how do you get a good strategy to maintain and grow those context assets that you're going to need for good AI-assisted development. This is the non-exhaustive look at the stack. Everybody is familiar with the left side of the screen, which is mainly the tools that everybody can use and are text-based independently of you working in code or in UIs, whatever it is. On the right, those products that are helping the product teams either find new information, extract it from conversations, or put it in a different way. In our case, in Centric, we're helping companies plan and scope effectively. For the builders, which is what we're going to be focusing on today, I usually divided that in three main categories. The web-based vibe coders, which are anywhere from Magic Patterns, which is specialized for product teams as well, prototyping and receiving feedback, to Tempo, that does some good requirements, Base 44 that was just sold, and the four most known ones, which are Bolt, VC, Replica, and Lovable. They are a little bit limited by the integrations that they have. They're mostly serverless. VC in particular is built on Next.js, of course, and it only uses Next.js as the stack. They all use very similar stack otherwise, and they use the same libraries. So it is very useful to get a quick look at what is the components that you're going to be mashing together in every integration that you do here. Then there's the AI native IDEs, so the text editors that actually bring in these AI abilities into your existing interface. Those are the ones that I'm the most fan of. And what I'm going to show you today is how to start building very quickly on a web-based interface and take that initial prototype onto your local so that you can continue with one of those AI native IDEs. The last frontier of this would be those that are in the command line interface. Those are the ones with the highest barrier of entry, but right now also ones that are working the best. Particularly Cloud Code has been the winner lately in at least developer sentiment. Just quickly, as I said, most of them run on Next.js or some other similar serverless stacks, and they use the same set of components. So this is just three of the libraries that are very common that you could use to inspiration when you need to find new components, when you need to understand how a component is actually used. This is public information. They are open source libraries, and it's good to have to be aware that they're the ones that are being used. In terms of limitations, the integrations are the most important limiting factor. Particularly, each of these have different integrations, so they allow you to do different things. The zero is the main one that we're talking about today. And as Roman was telling you, Vercel is actually a powerhouse for a lot of the DevOps work. So thanks to V0 being part of Vercel, you have a lot of abilities that you don't have in other places, or that other tools, like for example, Bolt, needs to partner with a provider like Netlify to do. And that is hosting, of course, hosting and deploying. In both cases, V0 and Bolt, both are going to be able to pull in some degree from Figma and to sync two ways with GitHub. And that is the most interesting things that we're going to be looking at today. They also have integrations for functionality because, as we talked about, there are serverless apps. They have a limited capacity to actually execute on your backend intent. So for that, they outsource that to either Supabase or other providers. V0 particularly has the SDKs of Vercel for any AI integrations, but you will find them lacking if you need to do something more complex than that. Finally, if you have not played with them today, you should, at the very least, with the free versions. Anybody without coding knowledge can start. With coding knowledge, you can get farther, though, and that is why I incite you to do like we're doing today and start to peel the onion and go from the non-technical to understanding at least the architecture decisions that you're going to need to make, understanding what are the stacks that are possible and how do they mix together. So here, if you want this, it will just take you to one of these demos, one little game that I did some time ago. And I suggest that you start with either a game or cloning an existing page, because it's one of those things that you have a very clear scope that you can actually have fun and not abandon the project halfway. Now, getting that stack together. The idea is, of course, understanding where are we going to use AI and why at each of the steps of product building. Building a product is not just writing code. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of strategy. You need to understand what is available in competition. What do users say that they want? For prototyping, I recommend Magic Patterns. It is actually very, very efficient. It can bring components from your existing libraries. You can attach specific like feedback loops so that people can receive the prototype, give you feedback, and you can incorporate it. And I do love V0 for actually building a V0. And this is what we're going to see today. Now, if you want to go further and you want to actually build this into your product, you will want to use other tools to understand what users are telling you and to plan actual engineering work. And for that, I would usually and generally recommend Centric. Of course, it's our own product, and I'll show you right now why it's also a very nice mix into this flow. If you're not technical and you have never used an IDE or the command line interface, this is the time to lose the fear. Before, it was syntaxes that was a little bit difficult to get into. Now it's natural language, so you have nothing to be afraid of. Now let's take a look at the real flow that these that can really like supercharge your capabilities. You will find what users are saying in real sources like Perplexity, Reddit Answers, or Grok. You will, from that, create a set of synthetic users so that you can ask them about new ideas or features that you're coming out with. Once you have all of that, you can process it on Centric, which can organize it for you and tell you what is the steps that you need to take to get that idea to production. You will then prototype with V0, sync to GitHub, open it up from Cursor on your local, deploy a first version that you can actually share with people, add analytics, and you're off to the races to start having a very rapid iteration where you're learning at every turn. Now, for the real cool stuff, let's look at a real demo. So this is Centric. This is our system. In here, I've already deep linked to a specific prompt, but how Centric works is that you can give it any specific small idea, like I want a new social login, and understanding all about your product, including the history that you have in your Jira, how your team works, the different roles that are involved in your work. It will actually start to do the work that product owners and product managers would do to start identifying the questions that you may need to ask and answer in order to eventually get to a complete set of documentation, prototypes, user stories, tasks that you can sync directly into your task management system. As you see, this is working right now on generating those text assets. And just because it's going to take a little bit to run, I'm going to show you another example. So if we are in existing interface, we can generate either a prototype or a prototype spec. And this is what we would use with V0. This gives us a complete, very long prompt that has all of the information about this project that we wanted to build. So the right thing to do will now be copying this, opening V0, and either importing it as a new project or continuing to one of the existing ones. Because we have very little time, I am going to show you this directly in one project that I have already been building. This is Vive Codex. Vive Codex is a place where I am putting all of my advice on how to do AI assisted development. It includes guides on Next, it includes guides on Cursor, and example projects that you can follow along with sample prompts, etc. All of this has been built in V0 with a little bit of help on Cursor. So in the last 5 minutes, we're going to see exactly how I did this flow. You start here in V0. You will start probably with one of those very long prompts that we give you in Centric. This will also help you identify what are exactly the tasks that you're going to need to work on so that you can itemize your work. Once you have that first version, you will want to synchronize it to GitHub. This is the way that you will start to do real version control. V0 on its own only have number versions. You can fork, and this is why you see only 2 versions here, because I had another 20, 30 versions in other conversations, no? Once you have it in a specific branch, once you have it in your repo, you'll be able to just work off of that. Once it's in GitHub, I recommend, even to those that are very familiar with GitHub CLI, to install GitHub Desktop. That way, you can operate here to see the diffs quite easily. Now, once I've already downloaded it into my local, once I have GitHub and the code base in my computer, I can easily just open. Now I'm going to discard these changes, for example, just so that you see the base of GitHub Desktop. I can just open this in Cursor. If you don't see this is something very easy to add. Basically, just configure your IDE. Once you have everything here, you can just continue your work in your local the document editor. So if you're not familiar with Cursor, again, this is not a guide to learn how to use it. The important thing is that you've gone from having a little prototype in V0 to syncing it to GitHub, downloading it to your local, and now you can continue unlimited by the limitations of V0. You can now build whatever you want here. You want to build a separate backend. You want to have a monorepo but that has some other microservices in here. Whatever you wanted, you can now do in your local Cursor setup. Inside of this Cursor, you are also want to now be able to do full version control. And that is why it is really nice to have the sync both ways with GitHub. You will have to be very careful because if you need to have different branches for your V0 work and your Cursor work, particularly if you've decided to allow for auto pull or auto commit, as you can start to get into some race conditions that can get a little gnarly. That's the long story short. There is a possible guide that we can do with each of these tools separately. So I invite you to do these same tests at home. You can create a free account in Centric, get a prompt idea, send it to V0, get a first prototype, get it into GitHub, download it into your Cursor, and continue iterating there. You can also use our vibecodex.dev. It's an open source project for reference to learn how to do good vibe coding. Finally, just as a summary, I want you to start embracing much faster work cycles thanks to the use of these tools. We can extract and generate ideas in bulk. We can break them down into actual initiatives that we want to take on very effectively using Centric. We can get continuous feedback and build quick prototypes thanks to V0. And once they're ready for us to do real work, we can bring them very easily into our local to continue with our IDE. I am gonna start wrapping up here. So if you have some questions, start thinking about them. But I do have some tips that I can leave you with, so that you can take some snippets home and start using them today. These are general tips that I have summarized for byte coding, but generally it's about ensuring that you have your own judgment, understanding the architecture and technical elements enough so that you can make the decisions, breaking down those large problems or initiatives into smaller development or phases, ensuring that when you have something big or important that you're asking the AI to do, that you ask it to, when it finishes, give you the steps to reproduce, to test it, so that it actually is aware that this needs to be used by a human. It's important to also have all of your context well managed, both from not exceeding too much in the code that you're working on and having continuous documentation files that you keep updating. That could be a little guides for your own different agents. So asking V0 to ensure that it has a very detailed and good description that the end cursor can read, etc., etc. Because this will be later posted and such, you will be able to take a look, and you don't need me to read it for you. Last but not least, this changes things even in full companies. So it's not also only at an individual contributor level. So it's not only what you can do alone in your computer, but how you can actually work with your team to make best use of this. I have some suggestion on how to do Vive collaboration in the real wild. And this is the model that I suggest you use for that. Definitely, it's a amazing way to learn together. And I look forward to hearing how you all put all of these advice together to make not only your ideas come to fruition, but help your companies go way farther. Feel free to reach out for any question about how to make your product teams actually efficient. And please go build amazing things.